All right. Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing tonight?
I feel good. I'm glad to talk with you. I really am. And I appreciate your patience with all those little technical difficulties we were having.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
yeah, I'm happy to kind of reconnect with you. We've never met in person, right? We've only
No, ma'am.
right. I think we've spoken on the phone like we've probably spoken on the phone more today than we have ever, which
We
I
have.
really yeah, which I really think is cool. So just to give a little bit of background for anyone watching, um, I guess I'm gonna say I met Chris through a mutual friend, um, Cornelius and Sharita Billups, and they are
Uh-huh.
just wonderful people. They truly are.
Yes, ma'am.
And uh, Sharita has a business going on, accessorizing on a budget. Check her out. I know Cornelius is too. Um, I'll tell you what, they are people that they do not give up, and
Yeah.
their energy is great. I really do, and I loved meeting her, and I met her at a good time in my life. So I really have a good spot in my heart for her. I really did. I really do. But anyway, I came across you because her and I talked about spiritual things, right? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
kind of like my belief in God or spiritual. I'm in between that type of thing. And she had mentioned you, and please correct me. I don't know. Are you a pastor, a
Yeah,
preacher?
I actually I pastor a church now. I pastor now.
Okay, all right. So she had mentioned you, and she told me you had a Facebook page, right? So I just did it one day. I was like, all right, I'll give it a try, right? And you were talking, and you're probably so sick of hearing this same sentence, but you were praying, and you
Mm-hmm.
said, Lord, we pray for the drug addict
Mm-hmm.
and we pray for the drug dealer. And it really, really stuck with me because I would say at that time, I had been sober it was recent, maybe 1 or 2, like it was like maybe 1 or 2 years. And it really stuck with me because I had never heard someone actually care about the drug dealer. And I
Yeah.
reached out to her. I remember I was like in a Dollar General and I was shopping, and she called me, and I said, or I think I called her, and I was just like, I don't know, I have to tell you this. And you were there, and I spoke to you on the phone that day,
Uh-huh.
and I told you
Uh-huh.
about that.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know, that always stuck with me. And I think it's worth talking about. I really do. So that's kind
Yes,
of
ma'am.
like the background or how we met. I'm kind of giving, if anyone's watching, there I'm giving them a explanation of why. But I really want to know about your background, like, and whatever you want to talk about, fine. But like, what got you there? Where I actually saw you on Facebook, you know, like, let's start back however far back you want to. It's fine.
I guess I have to start here. I have an extensive background in a lot of areas. To kind of make everything come full circle
Mhm.
of where I am now from where I came from. Um, as you know, my name is Chris, which my mom named me Christopher. I
Mhm.
actually was supposed to be a junior after my dad. Then she was going to name me Jonathan. But then when she was 8 months pregnant with me, she said an angel came to her in her room, basically lit
Wow.
the room up and said to her, that's my vessel that you're carrying.
Hmm.
He's going to be used by me. So when she said that happened, she surrendered her life to Christ, and she
Mm.
put Christopher to put Christ into my name because of the vision that she saw that
Okay.
night. Um, I've ran my whole life. I would be in rooms. I would hear my name Chris call, even as a young man, and I would run because I didn't know what it was. Um,
Mm.
I would be somewhere, um, and it was like I would hear Chris, or I would hear at the time something that would say leave or whatever. I would leave, then something bad would have happened where I had
Mm.
just left from.
Hmm.
So to make a long story short, I was one of the chosen, or I am one of the chosen. Um, but I got off ship when I left. I left, which I'm back here. I live in Gordo, Alabama. I'm back here in Alabama. But I left here at 18 years old. First time ever leaving the housing projects where I live. First time ever leaving the city. It was around the era when the whole crack epidemic happened here in a small town, and I watched it sweep through. I watched what it did across the board. I
Do
watched
you
a lot of my friends
do you
get.
recall what year that was?
Go ahead. It started around 91 here.
Okay.
I never forget 91, and it just kind of took off from that. But 91 was when it first hit. Um,
Mm.
and I first saw it for the first time through one of the guys in my neighborhood. So, he was like, this gonna change everything. We had no clue. We country boys, no, we visited the city. We had relatives, but we never understood the city life for real.
Hmm.
And it swept through and actually took our small town and our area by storm.
You're
Um,
talking
I
about
watched a
drugs, the
lot of my
crack drugs. You're talking
drugs,
about
yeah,
that?
crack
Okay.
in particular.
Mm.
I watched a lot of my friends go to prison. I
Hmm.
watched some of them lose their lives. So
Yeah.
so then it comes to me. I graduate. I'm leaving to go play football, and actually, that's what I was saying. I moved. I left here and I went to a small town called Midland, Pennsylvania, which is right on the Ohio Valley. Like it was right where West Virginia, Ohio, and PA
Hmm.
kind of meets.
Hmm.
So I went there and I went to a city where it was full blown. It was a full blown epidemic. It was the way of life
Hmm.
there. I often tell people when I got to the area, you were either what we call a hustler or you were athlete. Um, so I got there and I eventually ended up going to play football at a school called Robert Morris University. But um, I stopped going to church when I left. For 14 years, I didn't. I laughed. I didn't even go to church on Easter. I didn't go to nobody's church, and I watched this whole epidemic take the run that it had. So I got to see it from a full scale. Um, Went to Robert Morris. I graduated, moved back to Alabama. I actually I'm a music recording artist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and at this time I was on the stages with in that era it was the like the Bee Gees and the Juveniles and
Right.
those guys of that era. And so I was kind of on the undertakings of a lot of those guys' concerts. And and so I had a run with the music, and then God kind of, I guess he got tired of me running. So I fell sick. Found out that I was a diabetic. I actually was 26 years old, and even in that was a miracle because I had a juvenile form of diabetes that I should have found out about at birth, but I
Yeah.
didn't. I went with it for 26 years
Yeah.
until it
Yeah.
got discovered. The
Yeah.
day that I drove myself to the hospital, it was my blood sugar was over 1,500, and I drove
Mm.
myself to the hospital. And so that happened. Still, you know, we'll say per se, around the street life, watching the whole era of what's going on, and then it kind of took place from there. Got to a place. I was going through a divorce. I was ready to take my own life one day,
Mm.
and that's when I got introduced to Christ that day on a park bench right before getting ready to take my life.
Mm.
Um, and I said I'll never forget the prayer. My mom always told us to pray before we did anything crazy.
Mm.
So I prayed and I said I'll never forget that prayer. I said, God, if you real, I need to see here. I need to see today. And so I'm getting ready to take my own life. And by that time there was an elderly white couple walked by me, and I'm sitting on the bench. They don't know me, don't know what my intentions are. They look at me and say, "Young man, Jesus loves you." So by this time, and I'm looking over my
Hmm.
shoulder. They never broke stride, kept walking. So that I would
Wow.
sit on this bench daily. So there was an older guy that would come there, retired Army guy, would come and walk his dog every day. So he came and he sat beside me this day, and he started talking to me, and he basically summed it up. was saying, man, God has a purpose for you. You've got to stay focused. Don't do
Wow.
anything crazy. And so he gets up and leaves. And I'm looking now, me being me who I was at that time, I said, well, God, you're gonna have to send me one more sign because that could have been a coincidence.
Right.
So by this time, my sister, my sister's name is Pam. Me and her didn't see eye to eye. We'll say because of our walks of life. If I came in the room, she probably wouldn't sit there long. You know, and by this time, my phone is on silent because I didn't want any interruptions because I knew what
Mhm.
I was setting my mind out to do. So my phone starts making the ringing sound from a text message. So I'm looking and I'm like, I know I put it on silent. Well, it's Pam, and Pam
Wow.
sends me a message on this day. She said, God pushes you to the edge of a cliff. She said, trust him fully and let go. She said, one or two things are going to happen. He's either going to catch you or he's going to teach you how to fly. And
Hmm.
and we laugh about it today because at the end of that message, it said, love Pam. And
Mm.
now at this time, I'm 30 plus years old. My sister had never openly told me
Hmm.
aloud to me that she loved me. So I knew then, I said, God, you're real. So I
Hmm.
left there. I go to my mom's house, and my mom comes in from work, and she looks at me, and she looks at me, and she says, "You're ready now." She says, "I'm going to change my clothes." She says, call this number," and she said, "I'll be right back." And so she go in her room, and I'm looking. You didn't tell me who I'm calling. You didn't tell me. So I called this lady, Miss Veronica Pierre, and I said, "Hello," and she says, "Hello." I said, "Hello." And so she says, she then says, she says, "You're Betty's son." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Tell her to bring you around here to me." And
Hmm.
so this is my first time being being engaged with a prophetess. And she told me things about my life. Because anybody know me, I always moved in silence. Like I didn't announce moves. I wasn't a vocal person.
Hmm.
And she told me things that only I knew God knew. So by this time, okay, God, I know you're real. And then my mom tells me that I was chosen. She tells me about my name, how I got my name, and she
Hmm.
runs everything down to me. And so I began my path of Christ then, and I walked away from the music at the time. I walked away from the streets, everything that was connected to the streets, and I said, God, I'm solely yours. I'm wholeheartedly yours. And that's when my shift began. And we got on this path. That was in 2009. Yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
And you've been going strong still.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So when
You know.
you say, oh, I'm sorry, when you say like the streets, like what do you mean by that?
Um, from the entire the life, what I call the street life is from the being around drug dealers, being around gangsters. Because I tell people there's a difference. There's a difference in drug dealers. There's a difference in gangsters. There's a difference in hustlers.
Mm.
You know. So the streets were a variety of all of these type of individuals.
Hmm.
These were the guys from with music and everything else that at this point in time in my life, I was around it. These were what I call my brothers. These were my friends. These were the people who I could count on that looked out for me, and vice versa. You know,
Hmm.
we fought together. You know, we became family in a sense because a lot of us we had great mothers. We came from single parent homes. A
Hmm.
lot of us didn't have dads in the home, so of course when you're looking for influence and you don't have a dad in the home, a lot
Hmm.
of times the influence comes from
Yeah.
hustlers, gangsters, drug dealers. Your influence, because a
Hmm.
lot of people don't understand this, and that's why I say so often I pray for the drug dealers because success is so often dictated, and we'll say people that come up with a tougher culture, success is what we see. So if I see the guy in my neighborhood driving a
Hmm.
Mercedes,
Yeah.
driving the BMW, he's got the jewelry on, He's got the prettiest girl in the car with him.
Mhm.
You know, that's success in our eyes because that's all we see at this place and
Mhm.
point in time in our
Mhm.
life. So that becomes in a sense our idol, or that becomes
Mhm.
who we want to become because we want those things and we don't understand at this
Yeah.
moment. To
Yeah.
us, this is the right way to get them. So that's the path so often that's followed.
Yeah. I can totally see I understand what you mean. So what, if you don't mind saying, like, what were you, a gangster? Were you a dealer, or were you like all three? Like, what were, you know what I
we
mean? Like,
we was we will say that I carry the characteristics of everyone. I was a sponge in a sense. Um, a lot of things in the efforts of your what I call your right now becomes your right now.
mhm,
I tell people right now, and I speak on this a lot. Comfort and complacency are scary places. Comfort and complacency says that I'm going to just rest in this place because I've accepted this place. And for me, this is all I see. This all I ever see. So I'm going to make the best in this place. Contentment says, this is my right now. This is what I'm currently going through, but I don't always plan to be here. So right now,
mm.
I've got to make the necessary adjustments. I've got to make the necessary moves until I can get in a better position, but I'm not going to be comfortable here because I know this is not me. But right now, this is the efforts of survival in a sense.
So when you're talking about you're sitting on that park, that bench,
Uh huh.
you're sitting on the bench and you're saying you're going to take your life. What brought you there? I'm sure it's a combination of a lot of stuff, but
I was,
if you don't mind sharing, like,
yeah,
what is it that's a big moment, and what brings you to that point? Because I can't relate to it, so I would really like to know. I don't understand, I've never done that, so I don't know.
it's a dark place. I will
Mhm.
say this because I think something that's downplayed in our culture, and I say our culture, I mean across the board, black, white, no matter the nationality. Depression is downplayed. I hit a phase where I'm going through a divorce. Um,
Mm,
I had always known, I've always been known as Cash. So
mm,
here it is. I'm going through a divorce. Um, I love my daughters. At the time, I'm away from my daughters. I would, live. I went from living in the house with my girls to
mm.
now facing the divorce and not really
Yeah.
seeing them. So that was a dark place because my girls are, even to this day, they're daddy's girls. So
Hmm.
now I'm battling with that. I'm going through depression because now I don't have any money. I've hit rock bottom
Mm.
because I decided to walk away from a life and a lifestyle is no longer suitable for me.
But
This
that
is roughly
lifestyle,
2000.
oh, sorry. Was
Go
that
ahead. I'm
that
listening.
lifestyle
Go
was
ahead.
bringing you money, and then you said, I'm not doing this
Yes.
anymore? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay.
walked away from the music. I walked away from everything at that time in that phase. Came with the music, the street levels of success. I walked away from everything, and I
Hmm.
clean cut dry walked away from everything. I didn't walk away owing nobody nothing, no nothing. Like I wanted better because I was tired, and not knowing I was tired because I was chosen, and God wouldn't allow me to run anymore. So I was tired, and it was God's way of weighing me down, and depression set in. I tell
Okay.
anybody, depression is a dark place.
It is.
Depression has phases. What I tell people, and in those last phases of depression, before a lot of people actually take their life, it the depression is a spirit that it isolates you. And
Hmm.
once it isolates you, it makes everything dark around you. And then it
Yep.
tells you in that last phase, you're not worthless. I mean, you're worthless. You don't
Hmm.
have a purpose. You what are you doing? You don't even have
Right.
no purpose here. Nobody loves you. Nobody cares about you.
Yep.
Nobody's thinking about you. Why don't you go on and end it all? And
Yep.
then in the mind frame that I was in that day before this encounter with God, it had convinced me. Yeah, you know what? You're right. And because of my background and because of the guy that I had become known to be, um, death was something I never feared.
Mm,
So here it was. I'll end it all right here, right now, because I was on a roller coaster. I went days where I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I
mm,
was just drained. Mentally, I was beat. Um, I was known in a sense, and just being transparent, I was known as a ladies' man. The girls
mm,
weren't thinking about me no more. It was
mm.
like I'm
Yeah.
out here all alone, and I had nobody but God.
Mm,
And it came back like it did. And so,
mm,
okay, God, I'm gonna trust you. I've tried everything else but you. I seen what the streets offer me, and it was what I call temporary success. Like you hit highs, and anybody was in that culture, you're gonna hit a low.
mm.
That's just a harsh reality. You're
Yeah.
gonna take a hit. You're gonna hit you if you out there and you really,
Yeah.
even if you were successful, you took a hit in some type of way. And I was always known to bounce back. I grew known for Cash gonna bounce back. Just hold on, let Cash.
Mm,
I disappear and I pop back up. Okay, we
yeah.
good.
Yeah. That reminds me, I think it's kind of similar. How you said you're just tired. You were just
Yep.
tired of it, right? So I was an addict for 13 years.
Yep.
And it doesn't start off like full blown. It progresses.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, that's how I felt. It was just exhausted. I don't want to do this anymore. And I always say, like, I love the word and the feeling of desperation,
Yeah.
because if that did not exist, I would not have been able to go to a doctor and say, I don't want to do this anymore. Desperation is a gift. That's how I feel it. I really do.
Yeah.
That just hit me. I'm like, what is this? What is your life? You're a shell of who you used to be. What I was so desperate for a better life, you know? And I was one of the lucky ones. And I do not take that for granted at all. So I thought of that when you said that, like, you're just tired.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt. It's
Yeah.
exhausting. And it was exhausting being an addict. And when I went to rehab, it was exhausting being not an addict,
Right.
but it's the best decision I ever made, you
Man,
know?
God bless you.
Oh,
I tell
you're
you, I tell
sweet.
you. I just because I did one of the forms of ministry, what I do now, um, and it stems from before my mom passed. My mom worked at
Mm,
some mental health clinic here called Indian Rivers. And a lot of the people that I knew from that life, they would
mhm,
somehow always end up in her care. And,
mm,
and she would call me because they would be asking. Everybody knew my mom. My mom was that spiritual lady in the neighborhood that all of the kids could come there at our house. And for
yeah.
a while we would be jealous, and then we grew to understand it was my mom's anointing that people drew to her. She was
Mhm,
she was in a sense that
mm,
foundation of the neighborhood. So we became. I tell people we became involved in a sense in ministry early because that place. So now, saying that to say this, a lot of my Saturdays, like today, I'm in my office and it's uptown in the city where I live at. I'm here that now, but a lot of the guys that are battling and fighting addiction and trying to get away, they know I'm going to be here on Saturdays.
mm,
So, and here's the thing: I've learned because of watching my mom. I listen to them,
mhm,
and I meet them at that current place. I
mhm.
make sure, and I'm not saying this. I'm saying this in efforts of the podcast, not out of promoting myself,
I
but like
know.
the local guys here. And I tell people, the local guys that own like what's the gas station, they cook food and things of that nature. Those guys know they can they'll know who I send. But make a long story short, those guys can go there and they're going to eat, and I'll go pay the bill.
Yeah.
I won't necessarily give guys cash unless God say, "Hey, bless this person with some money."
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, they know if nothing else, we're going to eat.
Yeah.
Um, One of the other things that has came out of this, the local, we got a local. We're in a small town. We've got a local motel, hotel here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hey, they know, hey man, I need a place for tonight, or I need a place. Just like some storms just came through. And again, I'm not saying this for promotions, but just in efforts of my calling in God and understanding that place that these guys, men and women, are in. I knew a storm was coming, so I went and got got people rooms till this storm passed, so that they would have a safe place to be. I wasn't concerned about what would be going on
Right.
in those rooms. That wasn't my
Right.
place.
Right.
My place was to know that you wasn't gonna get rained on or this
Yeah.
in efforts of what you in efforts of your situation. Because
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I get it across the board. Like I tell them, lot of them family member have gave up. They've gave up. And I said it's not that they gave up on you. They want to see that you're changing. They love you, but
Yes.
in a sense, you tell them you're gonna do right, and then you go back. They're tired. I
Yes.
said, and I said, I'll
Yes.
never overstep family, but if I could be there, I'm going to be there.
Yeah. And no, I don't believe you are not. To me, you are not coming across as like I'm just saying this because of the. You're very authentic. I can hear it in your voice. I can see it. I can see your heart, and then I think that's great. I do small things similar to that as well because I know that I'm very lucky. One, that I'm still alive, and two, it could be me. You never know. It could have been me. It could be me, that person. Because when you're an addict, you do things that you're this different person. That you never ever thought you could be, right? So yeah, no, it's authentic. You're coming across, yeah, absolutely. I know you're telling the truth, and
Yeah,
that's really kind. And I love that you said it doesn't matter what happens in the room. I don't care. I don't care. I just know
yeah,
that you have a safe place. Do your thing. That's really cool. And I think a lot of people, there's a gentleman that I'll go to the grocery store and he's out there and do you want some food? Are you hungry? And he'll say yes. Okay, what do you want to eat? And I let him pick whatever. I've given him a couple bucks here and there. I don't care. It's just if he's hungry, he's hungry. Like what's it to me? You know what I mean? If I can do it, and then I'll do it. I don't know. I don't know. And a lot of people would just be
uh
like,
huh.
why are you doing this? Why are you? Well, because he's still a human. He's still someone that should be cared for. I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
Yes,
When did you
but
start?
it's to
Oh,
a
go ahead.
point. Can you hear me clear?
I can. Was I
I'm listening.
breaking
I'm
up?
going. Go ahead. I'm listening. Okay.
Was I
You was
breaking
for a
up?
minute. It was in and out, but I can hear you clear now.
Oh, okay.
You
When
were, but it's clear now.
Okay, cool. When did you start are you're a preacher, pastor? I'm sorry. What is it that you do? I'm sorry.
I pastor
Okay.
now, but I pastor what's called, we call it a unique, it's Genesis Fellowship Ministries, but we're a unique ministry in a sense of, um I don't like what I have on. I may wear this in preaching. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
You
not a
look
suit and
yes,
tie
you were
guy. I'll put
yeah.
one on if I have to.
Yeah, I noticed that it was very casual. It was a very casual experience when I was watching you on Facebook and things like that. Yeah, I noticed that too. So yeah. That was I grew up Catholic, so it was very I guess that's why I noticed it immediately. And like I said, even the things you were saying, it was so different from like a Catholic service. So I guess that's why it stung out to me too. But yeah.
Uh-huh.
hmm how
But
old were you
and
when
then so,
you
but it was kind of something. Go ahead, I'm listening. How old was I when
started I guess being the person going up there and preaching and
Um,
ministering, you
I
know?
was. What's funny is I would. It was the day that I surrendered my life to Christ. Now I got baptized when I was 12 because that was what we did in the
Mm,
country. As we said in the country church, you get baptized. We have revival, but it was actually my. Let me start back here. My 30th, around my 30th birthday, I started. The transition started. It started. Uh, had no idea on the day that I would surrender my life to Christ. Coincidentally, it was my 33rd birthday. Literally, it was my 33rd. And when you follow, like I follow Christ, um, but due to Mosaic law, they felt that the person wasn't mature enough until they were 30 years old to enter into ministry.
mm,
Christ in all of his uh in all of his knowledge, everything he had, he couldn't officially begin in ministry till he was 30. And of course, he was 33 when he was crucified. What we see in the Bible was really only 3 years of him walking, talking ministry when Christ is involved. And it seemed like a lifetime. At 30 was when my transition started, and I surrendered my life to Christ on my 33rd birthday. Had
mm,
no idea. That day, I had just left church, had just left my family. Um, I was in a bad place. Trying to make my family work. My wife had had enough. She didn't work. It's my 33rd birthday. I'm looking to enjoy my family for my birthday because I've made this change. And
mm,
I will say this in all honesty. Uh, um, the first time I was ever faithful to my wife when we were separated. And I stayed faithful to her while we were separated until we divorced. Because now God had a place in my heart and I really viewed as well as valued marriage like I should have
mm,
initially. But but to make a long story short, so I'm driving and a car passes by me extremely fast. And I'm like in a dark place, but I've got my gospel music playing and got my roof sunroof back because I'm trying to I'm back where I'm how Cash would ride. I got my sunroof back, my music playing, a beautiful day. I'm trying to find, as the young people say now, my vibe. And this car flies by me. So I hears now what I know is God speaking to me, said, let that car go. Like usually I'll jump in behind a car moving fast like that and kind of keep up with it. But today,
mm.
God, Holy Spirit says to me, let that car go. So I let the car go. And all of a sudden I see the lady car fly off the interstate. Not off the interstate. It was a
Gosh.
highway 82, which is the main highway that comes through here.
Oh,
So I
wow.
see her drive off the median really, really fast.
Wow.
So then I turn around, I see her, I turn around and I come back. Huh?
I said, wow.
Yeah. So I
Uh,
turn around and I get, and as I'm driving up to her, she kind of stumbles out of the car and I catch her before she falls to the ground. And I started praying. Didn't know really how to pray. I'm talking about because at this time I hadn't surrendered my life yet. This was prior to that day. So
mm,
I'm praying and then she went out. So now I start praying again and she comes back too. I'm looking at her symptoms, and then I had recently, a few years back, I remember till you found out I was a diabetic. So I knew the symptoms. I said, "Hey, can you check this lady's blood sugar?" By that time, first responders had got there, and so they take her finger, they prick her finger, check her blood sugar. It was 300 and something. So I hear in my spirit pray. So I start back praying, and within a few seconds, I said, "Can you check it again?" And the paramedic person kind of looks at me. We just checked it. It was this. I said, "Can you please check it again?" They checked it. It had went down to 100 in a matter of seconds. And the lady now comes to and looks at me. And she says, she looks me in my eyes. She says, "Thank you, young man." She said, "God has work for you to do." And so the paramedics get her, put her on, and take her. And I get in my car, and I never forget. I, I just start crying. I'm getting tears in my eyes now. I start crying. And so I said, "God, I'm tired." I said, "I'm yours. I fought it long enough. I had my sunroof back, and I just threw my hands in the air and I said, God, I surrender right here, right now. Whatever you want me to do, I'm tired of running. I'm tired of fighting. I want you to do it. And I said, I surrender. And that was right after I left that lady. And that's when I surrendered my life to Christ. And it just, God began to do what God does from there. And it doesn't mean, because a lot of people misinterpret this, it doesn't mean your storms go away.
Mm,
Actually, mine intensified, but I just learned how to deal
mm,
with them differently because now I was learning the ways of Christ and getting
mm,
stronger in God.
mm. Yeah, I like how you said that yours intensified, you know. That's not many people
Yeah,
admit that. That's really I like that's
yeah,
really cool. I'm gonna give you a lot. I'm seriously, I think that takes a lot of courage just to go, that I'm give it up to you, you know. You
yeah,
let go of control. I still struggle with that. I still go in between.
yeah,
Is this real? Is it not?
yeah.
I still go in between. I want it to be. I really, really do. But I still am in that period where I'm like, nah. And that's why I like to talk to people like yourself and other people who
Yeah.
believe, and I tell people all the time, just okay, pray for me. Pray for me that one day I will just believe it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So um
Uh-huh.
that's why I like talking to you. You at least, like, you just don't say stuff that you're supposed to say. You say the stuff that people, like, like you said, it brought more to me. It brought more storms to me. A lot of people in your
Yeah.
position do not say things like that, or at least the ones that I've known or have grown up with. It's but
Yeah.
that is huge. It takes a lot of courage just to say no, no, I give it up. I give up this control. I don't have control. I'm giving up to this. I'm giving it up to God. You know what I mean? It does take a lot of
Uh-huh.
courage. It
Mm-hmm.
really does. So, but even with that,
It's
like,
I tell you, I just recently got a I was gonna say too, I just recently got a kidney transplant. Like I went through a storm with that. You know,
wow,
doctors told me that I wouldn't get and I'm talking about recently, July is when I got my transplant of this year. And
wow,
doctors told me that I wouldn't look to get one for 5 to 7 years. God did it in 2 years, a little bit over 2 years. And they were telling me because of my blood type and all these things that and they're telling how long it would be. Well, God gave me a kidney of a perfect match. Excuse me. And God bless my donor's family, which we're like family now. He was the
mm,
same age, excuse me,
mm,
everything. And his kidney was a perfect match. Perfect match.
wow, wow. That's wild. That's awesome. Well, one, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I'm glad that all that. I'm very happy that all that happened. You look amazing. First off, you said it just happened in January. That's just amazing. You know, I always have a question, and I'm trying to articulate this correctly. When do you decide? Okay, because Sharita would always, I'd say, you did so good. And she would say, oh no, that's God. God did it. God brought it, right? And I would think in my head, like, yeah, but you did it too.
Yeah.
So, like, why, like, where is there a cutoff, or is there a cutoff where you can actually go, no, I did it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I kind of struggle with that think, because I'm not where you're at, right? So I struggle with well, can't I
Yeah.
have some credit for it too? You know what I mean? Like, why is everything
Yeah.
God did it for me? Well, no, I did it too, So, like, is there a cut
Mm.
in your opinion? Like, is there a cutoff? Is there ever a cutoff where it's like, nope, it was me? And if there's not, that's fine. I want to know why you feel that way.
It's uh it's funny you would ask that because I'm known for kind of pinning uh like when like my name was Cash when I was the regular guy doing the regular music. And God said, we're not changing you from Cash except now is Chris always stays humble.
Mm,
So a lot of times I face people that try to get me to take the credit, but I have another thing that I've pinned and it's called GBTG. So I created that hashtag. I didn't stamp it or didn't trademark
Mm-hmm.
it anything, but
Mm-hmm.
that was my way of when people would say, man, you did it. Now, glory be to God. I always say when they try to get me to take God's credit, yeah, I know glory be to God, man, and I know you all humble and everything, but
Right.
but but man, you were the one up there on the stage. I said, and I quickly tell them, glory be to God, because I don't. One of the stipulations that God did with me personally, He said, I'm going to deliver you through all these things that you're going through, but you got to make sure that I get the glory. And see, one of the key pivotal moments biblically was that God showed me in efforts of what He was showing me was when Moses hit a moment when the people were thirsty and they wanted water. So God tells Moses to take your rod that you're carrying and basically strike the rock, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
make water come from it.
Mm-hmm.
So Moses does that. The water comes from it. The people start praising Moses, and oh man, they love him. Man, he made water. So then God says, "That was your moment. Now it's time for my moment. We're back here again, but to show my elevation in you, I just want you to speak to the rock." Well, Moses gets there, and Moses starts back striking the rock because he thought about how good it felt when the people praised him when they thought he made this water thing happen. And so he started back striking it where God was telling him to speak. And then that small instant, he decided to take God's glory because I felt good when the people were saying that it was me. They gave me glory.
Mm-hmm.
They recognized me as somebody. And that's why I keep myself reminded, glory be to God, because I always reflect back to you talking to a man that guys came to kill me. Like in a sense, and a lot of it was out of envy and jealousy because of who I was. Before I got in God and I was in the streets, like they came for me on opportunities and moments, and I'm still here. You talking to a man that drove himself to a hospital drove himself to the hospital with a blood sugar
Mm-hmm.
exceeding 1,500, and I'm still here. You're talking to a man that battled COVID in 20 before they had all of the great remedies and all of these things, who
Mm-hmm.
started out with four of us. Two of us lived, two of us passed. So, God, wow. Then you're talking to a man who suffered uh, acute injury or kidney failure, who did dialysis for 2 years. Doctors told him 5 to 7 years. God gave me a kidney of a perfect match, and God blessed the Bigham family and everyone connected to him. I got a kidney in 2.5 years. So God, I feel it's only right that I make sure you get the glory, because God forbid I have a Moses moment that I want to take your glory, and now here it is. I'm set back because I chose a few seconds to take your moment when I should have let them know that it wasn't me, it was you. So that's what keeps me reminded, understanding Chris always stays humble. Humility is my path. I'll never, and you're talking to a guy that's been on stages with some of the biggest artists that is.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking to a guy that walked away from a major record deal on the table. Was
Mm-hmm.
several, but the last one I walked away from, there was three of us that were in that wave, and I don't know how much you've heard of, but their names are big enough that you probably should have heard of them. But one of them is a guy named Rick Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is a guy named Young Jeezy. I was the next guy up before our partner, who was orchestrating these deals before he lost his life.
Mm-hmm.
I was the next guy up. So you're talking to a guy that's been at the pinnacle and fell down from the pinnacle. I tell people a fall hurts from a higher height. I
Mm-hmm.
fell from that height. And since then I've battled because I, I I'm not perfect by no means, but I don't compromise God in the sense where I'm gonna take shortcuts in a sense that is gonna ever become about me. I don't never get beside myself. If I see ministry needed, I can meet somebody. You talking to a man that have gave people shoes off my feet. I've given people
Mm,
my coat off of my back. Like literally,
mhm,
God, I owe this to you because of what you've done for me. And God forbid one of my moments set me back to one of those moments.
mm.
So I get it now.
Did that feeling, did that happen immediately where God gets all the credit when you realized I'm giving this up to God. This is all God. Like, did that happen immediately? And also like, how did it feel when you had that moment? Did it feel like I've had moments in my life where I've let go of anger, I've let go of sadness, and it's like, oh gosh, I can breathe now. Like I feel light. How did that feel? How did that moment feel when you I don't know. I don't understand it. I've never been there. I don't even in my brain, I don't even know if it's possible. I believe you. I really do. And I love that that experience happened for you, but I'm still in this limbo thing. So I'm really curious to know how you felt when that happened. So,
It was moments. And let me say this because as I listen to you, I always tell people this. When 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 at that moment is very pivotal, uh, be careful what I say with your pronunciation. Be careful what you say to God and what you ask when you're at that pivotal moment.
mm,
Because I had to learn. Let me tell you something. One of the things that I did, I didn't have patience, and I messed around and prayed for patience. And when I tell you God turned me loose, when he finally turned me loose, it was the ride of my life. And I tell anybody now that I personally come in contact with, don't pray and ask God for patience. Find another way to ask or reword it because he gave it to me, but it was painful
mm,
gaining patience by my request of God. So
hmm,
I've learned to be careful with words. It were moments when God allowed me to go through storms, and in those storms they taught me something. But imagine being in a storm, because I want you to see this visually. Imagine being in a storm, and we'll say this so it intensifies the explanation. You're in a hailstorm, and we're just going to make the hail ice cube size. You don't have an umbrella, you don't have shelter to get up under, uh, you don't have a hat to protect you. You're running so your hands can't protect your head. And you go through moments where you may run 10 steps, it stops. You may take 5 steps and then it starts back. So you go through moments of going through that storm, you get an ease up and a relief, then you're back in that storm. So in the midst of those moments, my message to God was clear. Excuse me. God, show me what I need to see, how I need to see it, so that I'll receive it, because God, I'm tired of the storm. And right now, it was moments and times where I asked God, where are you? Where are you? So so you're not as much as wrong for what you feel, because there's moments even in me being seasoned, and I'm talking about you talking to a man that's went through some storms. Like I flipped in a car 5 times,
mm,
split my head open, and and my cousin that was in the car with me, I was out of it. I was out of it for about probably 10 seconds, gone. And he said, I just woke up and I couldn't see anything because I was literally covered in blood. Now, let me show you this moment when I flipped in the car that day. I was on a high. I just came out on the Birmingham Times newspaper. I was on the way to Atlanta to do a big concert, and I'm driving, beautiful day, sunshine, and my tire blows out on my SUV. We take these flips. My cousin only scars up his knuckle. I fractured my neck. I broke my collarbone. It was a lot of injuries I had. Well, behind
mm,
me was some off-duty paramedics, was some off-duty fire department guys was an off-duty police officer that when I took the last flip and my SUV landed back up in the direction I was traveling, those people jumped in the back of the hatch of my SUV and began to instantly work on me. And they already, when I took the first flip, they had already called UAB, which is in Birmingham. The ambulance was already en route
Mm.
when I took my first flip. They went on and made the call, and they kept me and worked on me until they got there. I'm laughing because as they're trying to work on me, they're trying to keep me from seeing my head. My head was literally split open.
Mm.
And they were trying to keep me because they were saying they didn't want me to go into shock. And I told him, I said, I've already saw my head. I said, but if y'all will, let me climb out on the other side because my cousin has got out. They were like, well, we don't want you to move right now. You've lost so much blood and all these things. We need to get what they call the jaws of life and cut you out. I said, man, listen, I know my body. If you'll just let me stand up, I'll get on the stretch and go any way y'all want to. And they let me climb out. I climbed out. I got out of my SUV, covered literally in blood, stood up. I laid on the stretcher, and they transported me to the hospital.
Mm.
Um, and here it was, another God moment. I flipped 5 times, and 5 is a number of grace. God graced me once again because I wasn't even in God then. I was going to do a record deal that day. I had
Mm.
meetings set up the next day after the concert. And then I was getting ready to go on tour in Stockholm, across overseas, with some guys that I had did some songs with that had blown up in their area. So they were preparing me to come on tour to Stockholm, go to England.
Mm.
So here it was. I've come from one of the most biggest moments of my career as an artist. The next thing you know, I'm flipping 5 times and on my way to UAB to the
Mm.
hospital. So I said all that for illustration of for you, for this. It's moments. You've got highs and you got lows. It's times when I solely and I true because here's the thing. I solely and I truly believe, but and I never stop believing in Christ, but sometimes God help me in my unbelief. How am I going to get through this pivotal moment? Because right now I don't see my way. And I think I said all that to say this. I think right now you're in that phase where God, I just like I was on the bench. God, I don't no disrespect, but God, if you I told him just like this. I said, if you real, I need to know today. You need to show me. And here it was. He sent 2 sets of strangers and then a sister who wouldn't
Mm.
even sit in the same room I sat in to
Mhm.
send me a text message to say that she loved me.
Mhm.
So God, I know you real now. Because she would have never sent that message on her own. And it's
Yeah.
moments like that. You don't get here overnight. And even when you get here, it's tough. Because you got to remember, and I say this to you, and I want to speak life into you. We were behind the enemy lines. We were way deep behind the enemy lines. And if he had his way, we would have died behind the enemy lines. Because the moment in this moment of clarity that we're at in our lives now, we become dangerous for him because we change lives. Because I can speak to you from that place of what I saw. You know, one of my hardest things in what I do now in my line of work, but I deal with kids. But one of my hardest things to do was to talk to a 13 and a 14-year old that were both addicted to drugs at the expense of their parents. Introduce those babies to drugs, and now having to be the one to get them to a better place. And thank God for him being who he is. I've watched their lives shift and change. But automatically, as a father with daughters, I begin to think about my girls. And I instantly started thanking God from this place. That could have been me. That could have been my babies. You know, and so therefore, God, I thank you.
When you say we're dangerous, who are you referring to? Who were we dangerous to?
Me and you become dangerous to the enemy, to the devil,
Oh, okay. Okay.
because he
Okay.
he wants to he wants to sell people off imagery.
Mhm.
We've experienced the life in a sense that we know his operation like the back of our hands. It's like we're the people that made it out, and now we can free people because I've been there where you've been.
Okay.
Let me show you the way because I got out.
Okay. I understand what you're saying now. Okay. I just didn't know who you were referring
Yeah.
to. Um, God, yeah, I really enjoy speaking with you. I really do. You know, I would say like I want to believe, I really do. And I would say there's
Yeah.
part of me that does believe, right? I'm angry. I'm angry with God, right?
Yeah.
So if yeah, I'm angry with him. And I think that's why I go, nah, don't resist. Nah, you don't exist because I'm angry, So and then the other half of me goes, come on, Carrie, like, let's be logical about stuff, right? Like, come on, let's be logical about, you can't prove things. You know what I'm saying? I really kind of go back and forth with that. I really want it to be true. I was walking into a gas station and a group of Mormon young men said, hey, would you like to come to my church with me? And I asked them, well, what church do you belong to? And we were talking and I was just talking to him and listening to him, and I said, I'm not really a believer, but I appreciate you speaking with me. And I said, but I would like you to pray for me that one day I do believe. And their faces like lit up,
Yeah.
but I meant it. I would love to feel the way like where you have like, without a doubt, this is real. Without a doubt. There has to
You
be a
you you
huge amount of comfort in that. Is there for you?
you're going to believe. You're going to believe. As you're talking to me, I've got some strong spiritual gifts. And I will say there were gifts that I've always had that removed me from some situations where they were they had me set up to take my life, but I would be gone because God showed me to be gone. As you were talking, this is what I heard in my spirit. You're going to believe. You already believe. And now I've got to be transparent with you because the Bible tells us be angry and sin not, basically. I want to say this to you, and I want to be transparent because you're being transparent with me. I'm currently going through a situation, and I can't really speak on it because it's getting ready to go through the courts. Um, but I was angry at God.
Mm,
God, how could you allow me to not be sleeping, not be eating? I'm facing a fight. You're my God. You know I worship you in spirit and truth, like your word declares. But I'm having to fight people right now.
mm,
God, why am I having to fight and lose sleep? And I hit moments that I wanted to take matters into my hands, but the little piece of belief in me kept me from not taking it into my own hands. Fast forwarding now in the court, it'll be coming up soon. But God just decided to give me peace after years, now years, uh, about a week ago. So you can imagine a year and a half or more or longer, you're going through. And then God, I solely give my all to you. But yet I'm going through this storm.
mm,
But then he reminded me, he said, in the Bible declares that I will never leave you nor forsake you. Sometimes you'll hit moments, and this is what I want to speak into you. Sometimes you'll hit moments that like you feel forsaken. God, I want to believe in you, but where you at? I hear all these things about you, but and I would talk to him. When I first began on this path with God, you probably laugh if you could hear some of our conversations and some of my prayers. I was calling him bruh. I was calling him partner. Hey God, hey, not like I'm talking to him like that because that's what I knew how to talk and communicate at the level that I were. But I watched as I grew more intimate with him. I spent more time with him. more one-on-one time, more personal time. Then I start going through experiences, and then it was like you're gonna go through. Listen, you're gonna go through, but you're not gonna be stuck in that place. We're gonna get through it, but it's gonna come at the expense of some pain. But we're gonna get through it. And then I had to start looking at the bigger picture, from my kidney to the car accident to everything I faced. God has healed me from all of these things. Although it came through medicine, although it came through whatever, I just had eye surgery. I went probably 3 months. I had no sight in my right eye. And nobody never knew it because some of my mentally, I still think on a street level in a sense of if some people probably knew my weakness, they probably try to take advantage of it. So you just stay silent so nobody know you're going through a storm and you can't see out of your right eye because you don't ever know who may see you as being weak in that moment and they may prey on you. Wolves prey on people in weak moments. So we're around wolves every day. So now, God, I need you to keep me strong. But then I've got to be silent at times because some people will select moments of the attack. The enemy will select moments when he attacks you or make you feel like God is not real or that wavering moment. Because if I could get you to not believe that God is real, then I, look, the secrets of what I do can kind of stay safe. But if you begin to speak on things like you've educated me on in this conversation, you've educated me, and you were talking about, as you say, the desperation and those things. Um, I've never tried drugs, never nothing. I've never smoked marijuana, no nothing, and so I couldn't relate to that moment or that place. But here it is, you got people that can because they've been there and made it out, and
Mhm.
so therefore and I know because I deal with a lot of people that have dealt with addiction, and a lot of times I'll hear them refer, "Hey, I'm an addict." I understand teachings, but I'm careful in what I say, regardless of what they taught me. Yeah, I'm reminded of my reality, but I'm not going to speak that on myself anymore. I
Mhm.
was in the words, and I'm crossing over because I love hip hop in a sense, but in the words of Jay-Z, Jay-Z said, "I was who I was before I got here," and I
Mhm.
look at our lives as such. Before we
Mhm.
got to this place of growth of where we at now, we were who we were before we got here. But we're not, we're no longer those people.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Um, I would I'd like to talk to you again. I really would. I hope that you would want to come back and just discuss things. I feel like that I could, say things like and be open, right? And you'll go, "No, I don't think you'll do that. I think you'll
Yeah.
listen and not judge." Um how do you feel about that? Would you like to talk again?
We're supposed to. Can I share something with you?
Please, please do.
I have some great gifts in God. This was the introduction, but what God has done here tonight, we're going to transform. Listen, God does a full work when He does His work. We're going to transform people while helping to transform you.
Hmm.
We've got to do this, and I'll say this to you right here tonight. As often and as much as you want to, my Saturdays are freed up. You say when, however often,
Hmm.
because this what we've done here tonight is just the beginning of something big that God is doing. And listen, I felt comfortable with you that I've shared things with you that I've people who knew the stories,
Hmm.
but on a podcast level, nobody has never been able to get what you've gotten, and it goes much deeper. And I'm willing to go there with you because we're going to transform lives across the board, from the dealer to the folks that have been addicted and ones that are currently going through that are going to come out. We're going
Hmm.
to transform a lot of people because of what God has began here tonight.
That's my intention for even starting this. I just wanted to just speak and voice and help, and If we said before, if it reaches a few
Yeah.
people, great. So, yeah, I definitely want to do this again. And where I want to leave it at, maybe the next time you mentioned about, you were saying, there's the wolf, right? And eh, you were just talking about the wolf, right? So I have this thing
Mm-hmm.
where I say, at least like, you may not like hearing this, but at least like, the devil and there's God, right? Well, God promises you all, or
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give you all this stuff, right? Well, the devil doesn't. The devil says, nah, I am what I am.
Uh-huh.
This is bad. This is it. Well,
Uh-huh.
you know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? So I think like, well, at least he's like forward. You got what you get. Like, I'm already telling you straight up who I am, right? With God, you got to go,
Uh-huh.
well, why'd you do this? Well, because you know what I'm saying? There's too much in between there. At least this one. And I'm not saying I worship the devil. I don't, because I really don't believe in either one of them, really. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back. I
Yeah.
don't really believe in the devil because I feel if there is a God, then there can't be a devil. That's how I feel. Because God, why would God do that,
Uh-huh.
right? If there's God, why would he create
Yeah.
why would he allow that? But let's just say they are. Meet me on my level, like you said. If there's two beings here,
Uh-huh.
I mean, this one's at least telling you straight up. You know what I mean? So let's talk.
Yeah.
I want to talk about
And
that
that and
next
that's
time.
and that's what we're here for.
You know?
Let's do it. Let me leave you with this though. I want to leave you with this to think about until we talk.
All
I
right.
want you to look at it from this point.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy or the devil pain is for punishment. God's pain is for preparation.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy's pain is for punishment, but God's pain is for preparation. I'm preparing you for something greater. It's kind of like boot camp. It's kind of like being a sailor. My brother's retired military guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he often says, "Smooth seas don't make great sailors. Stormy seas do." And then he has this thing where he trained young soldiers, and he said, "My job." He took 21-year-old soldiers and he made them through the U.S. military fighting forces, because of his level of training and how he did with them and his preparation. But God's pain in efforts of thinking about boot camp is like boot camp. I'm preparing you to become greater. The enemy is I want
Mm-hmm.
to take you through some things. But remember this. The enemy only has as much power as we give him. We give him no power, he has no power. But but in God we have power. The
That
Bible tells us that's why I'm careful with my words.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, you give people power. Right, you allow that. Here's where I get caught up, and we're going to
Yeah.
talk about this next time. When you say he's preparing you,
All right.
well, what are you preparing me for? Like, why can't you just tell me? Like, why do I have to learn all these lessons? I don't. That's where I get hung up, and that's where I want to talk next time about it.
All right. That's where we'll
You
start at.
know? Yeah. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
really appreciate this. I'm so glad that
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad this came to my head and I thought about it and I thought of you and I'm like, I'm going to reach
Yes, ma'am.
out, so I'm really glad that you agreed to do this. And we'll talk afterwards about maybe we can do something like once a week or once every, whatever, however
You
our
say,
schedules.
look, I'm on your schedule, your time. You say when and we'll make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to, yeah, that'd be cool. I appreciate that. Thank
Yes.
you. I appreciate it so
Yes, ma'am.
much. I'm going to get Jason in here. We're going to, I think we're going to leave studio, but, oh, wait, before we go, do you do any, are you at a church right now that you speak at or a Facebook page or anything like that, that people can see you? Eh, You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. It's actually Genesis. Uh-huh. Genesis Fellowship Ministries. I'll see if I tell you what. I'll I'll share it. I'll send it to you. I'll send the page to you. Yes, ma'am, we do, and I'll send the page to you. But it's
Okay.
Genesis Fellowship Ministries.
Okay. And we'll put it in like,
Yes, ma'am.
I have
And
to figure
and
out
then I
like,
do.
go ahead.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
No, 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 go ahead. Go ahead.
And then my Facebook, I do a lot of lives on my Facebook. I do a lot
Okay.
of lives on my Facebook too with Christopher Washington. God has kind of pushed me out more to be more vocal. So I'll do lives. It's nothing I do every day. It's just whenever God leads me. So and they've actually grown in efforts of just being obedient to God. They've grown as well. So I'll text everything to you so you'll have it, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love that. I'm still kind of learning the software, but at least I'll put it in the comments or something like that. I'll figure it out. So Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really do. I enjoyed my time with you, and I'm really looking forward to talk with you again. So
Yes, ma'am. I look forward to it as well. You all have a blessed night.
you too. Bye, babe.
All right. Bye bye.